Welcome to the Mix Zone. It's a weekly review of news from around the world of Olympic sport, brought to you by Around the Rings. I'm Ed Hula, editor emeritus and founder of Around the Rings.
And I'm Gerard Farek, managing editor of Around the Rings. This week, vaccination policies are under review around the world as the Beijing Winter Olympics approach. And the 2022 World Games in Birmingham, Alabama in the USA aim to be the first major sports event held under the new normal.
And the election for a new president of the International Canoe Federation gets a little complicated. And there's a new leader for the Argentina National Olympic Committee. First, Gerard, what to do about the conflict over athlete vaccinations at upcoming events and games? There's hardly a common approach. One way calls for vaccinations, and then the other way says athletes don't have to get vaccinations, and that's all going to come to a head again in Australia, it looks like, in a few months here.
Yeah, that's right. The Australian Open, the tennis open, the first tennis major of the year, is going to be held beginning in January, and the Australian state of Victoria, where Melbourne is, that hosts the tournament, they're going to require every player to be vaccinated. This could pose quite a problem because the reports are that only about half, or a little over half, of the players are actually vaccinated. We could end up seeing, I guess, worst case scenario, a return to the 1970s and early 80s when most of the top players skipped the Australian Open. It only became a true major later in the 80s, but who knows? We may see something work out between now and then, but many of the top players, Tsitsipas and is among them, saying, well, I'll get it if it's mandatory. So let's see what happens. Now it looks like it might be mandatory. And then you've got Beijing, of course. We've discussed this before. Beijing is not making vaccinations mandatory, but if you don't get vaccinated, you have to spend 21 days in quarantine once you arrive in China. That's hardly an incentive not to get vaccinated, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have to see about that.
And then we have coming up the Junior Pan American Games in Cali, Colombia, coming up in just about a month's time or so. What's the vaccination situation going to be there?
Well, they're calling for mandatory vaccinations for both the Junior Pan Americans and also for the World University Games, the Winter Games in Lucerne, which is going to be held in December. So the Junior Pan Americans, late November to early December, and then a few days later, you've got Lucerne. And both of these are requiring vaccinations. The Lucerne organizers, in fact, said that that was going to be the only way that they could pull off holding this event, was that if they required vaccinations. So now you're looking at a couple of events that are smaller in scale, but still pretty large. You're still talking thousands of athletes here. Maybe if those go okay, maybe that will be the way forward for some of the major events.
And major events coming up next year besides the Winter Olympics, well, and the World Cup and a track and field World Championship would be the World Games taking place in Birmingham, Alabama. There'll be a question about how to handle vaccinations there, and just the location in Birmingham, Alabama, one of those states in the U.S. with a low uptake of vaccinations among the general public.
Yeah, I've been talking with the CEO of the World Games, Nick Sellers, several times here in the past few months, starting, I guess, back in July at the 1 Year to Go event. And at that point, they were very excited and very positive that, hey, this will be fans back in full attendance. It's going to be great a year from now. And then the Delta variant, came a calling. And the last time I talked to him, we were, he's hopeful that we're going to get out of that and still have plenty of time, and it's still going to happen. Everything will still be back to normal with full crowds and everything. And I guess that's also what the World Games Federation president is thinking will happen.
Yeah. And speaking of that gentleman, Jose Perurena, he is also president of the International Canoe Federation. He, by the way, had his own bout with coronavirus in 2020. And, he's certainly one of those individuals who knows firsthand the experience of the illness, and it brings a real perspective to it as far as the World Games go. But he's also president of the International Canoe Federation, stepping down this year, though, after I think 3 terms as president, 3 or 4 terms. That was going to be a foregone election for Thomas Konietzko, the German Federation president, and just in the past day or so, we've gotten word that the president of the Russian Federation of Canoeing, Evgeny Arkhipov, is going to be running as well for the presidency. A little competition is good for the soul, good for the federation, perhaps, and we'll see how that goes. Mr. Arkhipov is from St. Petersburg, which leaders of the city and other sports leaders have their eye on St. Petersburg as a possible contender for the 2036 Summer Olympic Games. So maybe that's all part of a grand strategy on the part of the Russians.
Well, you never know, right? You just never know about things like that. Speaking of elections, there's a new leader of the Argentina National Olympic Committee.
Mario Mocha was elected this week. He succeeds Gerardo Vertain, who's the IOC member from Argentina, and he's been he has been a real worker in the vineyard, so to speak, for Argentina, representing the NOC at the Pan Am Sports Organization meetings, at other functions for Argentina. He's from the sport of handball, and a real gentleman, and is going to be likely a very positive choice, a very positive successor to Gerardo Vertain. So congratulations to Mario Mocha, and we look forward to seeing him on the road to 2024, 2026, somewhere along the road to the games here.
Speaking of 2026, sounds like everything's going smoothly with it based on the latest IOC report from their COCOM. Yeah,
COCOM met this week as well. Sara Essier from Finland, the leader of that group. They don't have any major decisions pending, but according to her and the comments from Johnny Malago, president of CONI, the visit, the inspection this year by the COCOM, not revealing any problems, any issues. I understand they've moved into a new headquarters building in Milan, and things seem to be going as planned towards 2026 right now.
And I guess obviously the IOC's biggest concern right now would be Beijing 2022 and making sure that is handled well. But they are going to carve out a bit of time in late November to meet with Salt Lake City and discuss a possible future Winter Games.
As we all know, Salt Lake City has put its hat in the ring for a Winter Olympic bid, and they are the candidate of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. No question about that. They'll be entering into the dialogue phase, as it's called right now, where they will perhaps figure out from the IOC whether it's best to go for 2030 or 2034.
All right. On that note, I think that's it for this week's Mix Zone from Around the Rings. I'm Gerard Farek.
And I'm Ed Hula. Be listening for the Spanish edition, Zona Mixta, with Sebastian Fest, our editor, and Miguel Hernandez, our reporter.
All right. Until then, take care and so long.